Hi everyone. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about artificial lighting and particularly flash photography. Okay, there's a lot of instances where you might find yourselves in need of a flash, and oftentimes it can be a bit intimidating on how do you use that. And so I want to talk a little bit about what that on-camera flash might consist of versus hopefully talking about some off-camera ones. And so I want to go through a few pieces here on the table first, kind of talk through some different ways that you can utilize that flash, get it off camera, for example, and then we'll do kind of a little studio setup just to show you maybe the differences in a change of aperture and shutter speed, how that might affect your photo, and what some of the end results might look like. And so I've got my digital SLR sitting right here, and we could power it on. And we're in a darker area sitting right here, and so right off the bat, I'm at ISO 200. Say I want to keep my ISO low. I'm only at 1/8 of a second right now, 1/10 of a second. And I've got my aperture pretty wide open, f3.5 right now. And so you might say, well, I need to utilize a flash if I don't want to push my ISO very high. I don't want to have that graininess or noise in a photo. And so the first thing I would mention slash caution you about is this old dreaded on-camera flash, okay? Most of your digital SLRs have them. It's just simply a release button right here that pops up. You can see how small this footprint is. It may work for a subject that's right in front of the camera, 10, 12 feet away. It's not going to reach very far. It doesn't have a lot of power coming off of it. But the problem, the limitation with this, look where it's at. It is right on top of that lens, shooting right at your subject. And more often than not, if I all of a sudden decide I want to take a picture with this flash, you get oftentimes a kind of deer in the headlights look. Okay, red eye is very common, but I don't know if you guys saw that flash just go off right now. Again, everything is just very harsh in that photograph. And so first thing I'm going to tell you is put that down and keep it down. Get rid of that on-camera flash, and don't expect to really utilize it if you want to have good flash photography in your pictures. Now, a lot of reasons you might use the flash. You might use it in a lower light scenario like we are right now. Okay, maybe you use it during the day, and you want to choose to use a little bit of fill light in your photo, or have a little bit of fill light in your photo created by that flash. Okay, when you shoot in midday, you get a lot of those harsh shadows, high contrast scenarios like we discussed. Okay, you can take this flash and create some fill light on the body. Even during the day, we can do some other kind of cool studio effects, whether we're inside or outside. We can put it behind somebody, create kind of this glow or rim lighting. We can, again, create some fill light from the front. Lots of different things that we can do. And so, again, I've got two main off-camera flashes here. And this is a Nikon one. This is the Nikon SB10 or SB910. Very common flash. They've changed this model a little bit, but these are extremely versatile. And right off the bat, you could take this and we could just put it on top of our camera right here, okay? And on the back, it's got a little lock switch, and that's a good thing. Lock it onto your hot shoe. That way, when you tip it up and you're shooting at all different angles, it's not going to come off, okay? They're expensive flashes. And so we kick on our camera, and now we can kick on this flash, okay? And so the nice thing about this hot shoe is the electrical contacts between each, okay? You can always see those on the bottom of the flash, and this would mimic what is on the hot shoe itself, okay? And so those electrical contacts are communicating. It goes to sleep right now on the back, but as soon as I push halfway, all of a sudden it wakes up and it knows my ISO is on 250. It's got an exposure compensation on right now. We can take that off. Let's take our EV off a little bit. And so right now we're in what we call a TTL mode. TTL stands for through the lens. The cool thing about these flashes is they've got little infrared beams right here. And depending on what my aperture is, it even knows, it shows right here f3.5. It tells me, because these are so powerful, these will reach a long ways, a lot longer than that on-camera flash. But it tells me, as long as I'm shooting, say right here, and my subject is between, it says 4 and, if you guys can read that, 4 and 64 feet, okay? As long as it is anywhere between that range, it will take a correct flash exposure. How's it going to do that? Well, it happens in milliseconds, okay? But an infrared beam is going to quickly leave the flash here and go to your subject and return back, let it know the distance. It will automatically adjust the power, take the photo with the correct flash exposure, all before you even know it, okay? Now, you have a greater distance and more power with a large aperture. Just to show you the difference of that, let's change our aperture to, oh, just for the sake of it, let's put it on f18, okay? And so now it shows, it even knows the focal length. So it says we're at 70 millimeters, 52. It knows everything on this flash because of those electrical contacts. That's pretty cool, okay? Shows ISO 250. We're at 70 millimeters, f18 now. And now it says if my subject is between 2 feet and 12 feet, it will be a correct flash exposure. Well, that's a huge difference, okay? Now it has to be much closer to the camera. And so aperture is 100% responsible for that correct flash exposure. Now, you might be choosing the aperture that you want in terms of a creative shot, whether you want a shallow depth of field or a great depth of field. And we'll take, again, some examples here in a minute. But also realize how that will affect the power of the flash. Aperture is 100% responsible for that correct flash exposure. Now, shutter speed, on the other hand, is responsible for the background or the ambient light in a photo. And depending on what we have our shutter speed on, again, we're always going to want to shoot our flash photography in manual. Depending on what our shutter speed is set on, if it is shooting at correctly exposed based on the light meter, the background is going to show up just as it would, but we're now going to illuminate our subject with the flash. I could also choose to have the background somewhat underexposed and either maybe slightly underexposed or all the way underexposed in terms of maybe 4 or 5 stops where the background is completely black and all that's illuminated is the subject by the flash. And so you could do some cool creative effects. We've done that in a house. There are a lot of studio settings where you take some really cool creative shots and all that's illuminated is the person or the dog or the horse or whatever that is. The background is all black. And so I showed you how you could do that with natural lighting. That's one way you can do it now with artificial lighting or that flash photography. And so that's through the lens. That is your basic sense of just getting a more powerful flash right off the camera. But where is it shooting? Still straight at the person, okay? You oftentimes get this deer in the headlights look. So, some other things that you can do. The advantage to this is I can point it up, okay? Especially if I've got white ceilings or white walls, I can start to bounce this flash and create light in the scene that is not pointing straight at my subject, okay? I could point it up. I could then take it maybe a little bit off to the side and then kind of illuminate this side of the scene. You also have a lot of different options, some built-in diffusers. And so this little white card that you'd see right here is what we call a bounce card. And so light's going to bounce off of this and then basically go towards our subject. And so again, getting away from that kind of direct, harsh light. You can see this diffuser that sits on the flash right here. It's going to help to spread out that light again, so it's not this harsh deer in the headlights look. So we can always put those away. You've got other options. These gels right here are basically just for different temperatures of light. If we're going to go in some fluorescent light or a different color temperature, we can put those on to adjust our flash accordingly. Here's another diffuser, okay? This diffuser can just simply snap on the front of your flash like this, okay? And now all of a sudden when we choose to take that picture, what's going to happen? Man, it spreads out all over the place, okay? And so again, a lot better to be able to take a photo like this than pointing straight at that subject. And so now you can move it all the way around, okay? And so that's initially on camera. One other kind of method that you could use as a, now again, you can use all these diffusers off camera too. One other method that you could use to spread out that light a little bit is what we call a little softbox, okay? And so these are pretty cool. You can see it's just a cloth material right here, but these, all they do is go right over top of your flash like that. And then we've got kind of a little Velcro strap that's gonna wrap all the way around my flash, come back, and then I can still move this around a little bit, but my light is very diffused now. And so I can take this, push my flash button, and again, it's a lot softer now than it previously was, but still adds some fill light. And so this softbox is an easy thing that you can do Again, I've done a lot of shoots where I got to go to an event, okay? Maybe it's a charity event, maybe it's something else and you're shooting indoors. And so you got to figure out a way to diffuse that light a little bit and still get good looking photographs. And so this softbox is again, one way to do that. Let's talk now about some various ways that we could potentially now get this flash off the camera, okay? That's when you're gonna start getting some cool photographs. And so let's kick our camera off for a second in our flash just so we can show you some different scenarios. And so we can take it off the hot shoe. And so the first option is really going to be if we want to have it close. Maybe we just want to hold it up in the air off to the side, but it's still pretty close to our camera body, okay? And that's what we basically have a sync cable for. And so this little sync cable, this end is going to go into our hot shoe. It has a little lock on it just the same. And then this is going to slide basically onto our flash. Lock just the same. Everything is on here, not going anywhere. And so now I can kick everything back on and it has the same connection that it did as if it was on top of the camera. It still knows ISO is 250, okay? Still knows I'm 66 millimeters f/18. If my subject's between 2 and 12 feet, it'll be correctly exposed, okay? Depending, this is pointing at that subject it can read. It knows all of a sudden if I change my aperture now, I'm at f9, shows on both of these. If my subject's between 2 and 25 feet, it will be correctly exposed. So I'm in a TTL mode still. And so this is now allowing you to be kind of one method of off camera. We could point through here and then all of a sudden click the button and flash still fires, okay? And so this is that sync cable. There are two other main ways that you can next get that flash even further off camera, to the point where I could put it on the other side of this room, or I could put it 100 yards away up in a barn shining down on someone that I'm taking a picture of, okay? The first of which is a little restrictive, and it's something that Nikon does in terms of what they refer to as a commander mode. And so you can put it in commander mode and basically these into a receiving mode, and this flash is going to fire only to tell these to then go ahead and fire, but they have to be close nearby, and it's an infrared signal that is linking to them. More reliable than that, and probably the best means to truly get that flash off camera, should that be what you desire for your photos, is radio controls, okay? And most of them are going to be a third-party radio control. Pocket Wizard is probably one of the most popular brands out there, but these right here are the receivers. And so what's going to happen, I've got this little flash just sitting on this stand right here. We could put it back on this stand in a moment, but the cool thing about this, I could put this on a table behind somebody and add a little bit of rim lighting. And so let's just take it off of there real quick. Let's show you how this might work. And so this is just going to go onto this little receiver, and then antenna goes up, and from here we could put this right back on our little plate, okay? And so we will go ahead and kick that one on to C1, okay? We've got a little light that illuminated on the back. And so now that is ready to go. We could set that literally wherever we wanted to, create some room lighting, fill lighting, etc. What's going to happen now, this one is for this flash. We could put it somewhere else. We'll do a little studio setup in a minute. And then kick my camera off again. And let's remove that sync cable. And the first thing we could do is then take the transmitter or little transceiver, and it's going to slide into the hot shoe on the camera and simply tighten down, okay? I'm going to put this to C1 as well. And then this is a cool nifty little thing that can go on the top, that if I have, say, this one's on A, we'll put this flash right here on this one, and we'll put it on, let's turn that sucker off, we will put this one on B, okay? And so now we've got that on there, lock that down, and turn it on to C1, and it's set on B. And so now we could put this in a number of different scenarios, and I'll talk about these here in a minute. And so we could slide this onto this little holder here, put our antenna up, everything is good to go in that setting. This allows me to dial those in and adjust the power of A and the power of B if I want a little more light, a little less light coming from the flash. And so this is just going to pop right onto that little transmitter right there, okay? And so everything is on. I've got this on C1 now, got my camera on, and so this is now blinking, and it's basically going to transmit to this flash and this flash, okay? This is, they're both on a C1 channel. This is on A, this is on B. I can control the power to each of them, okay? And essentially what I want them to do. And real quick, before we maybe do our studio setup, just so you see some additional things you can do with that off-camera flash, I could take this, put it behind someone on a table, point it up a little bit, create some cool rim lighting, okay? This, we can shoot through umbrellas. This one is meant to go pointed at somebody, much like that softbox that you see right here, but a much larger scheme. I can take this, move this around the room, adjust the angle and the pitch of this. These are cool. They're kind of air shocks in these. And then if I wanted to, I could take this and we'll pull this open here. And then I could change the angle up, down, wherever I want with that umbrella. And again, create some added lighting. This one is meant to bounce off of, okay? And so now it's going to be in the opposite direction. Say you are standing where the video camera is right now and I take a picture of you. My flash on this one is going to point into this umbrella, but instead of meant to shine through like this diffuser right here, it's going to hit this really slick silver surface and bounce and return back. So this one's going to be in the opposite orientation from this right here. Lots of cool things that you can do. Again, even with equine photography. Years ago, we used to do some after sale photos and after competition photos with a blue drape background, some green grass on it, bring our people in, horses all cleaned up, hold all their ribbons, and we didn't quite have enough light in the barn. So I would utilize this and this, get those flashes off the camera, do kind of this studio setup. The horses didn't care whatsoever. We take these photos, we had nice abundance lighting. Maybe I'll throw one of those photos up here on the screen and you can see what that looks like, okay? We'd put the brands on there, etc. But that was done because of the flashes that were in the scene, and it made everything be correctly exposed. And so hopefully that's a little bit more of an understanding of flash on camera, how to get it off camera, utilize the power. Again, these can reach up to 50 feet or so, whereas this on camera one only about 10 to 12 feet. But this on camera one only points straight at your subject, can't go anywhere else. This, even on camera, you can bounce it, move it in opposite directions, or you can get it off camera with that sync cord, or even further off camera with one of these umbrellas right here. And so with that, let's look at maybe that studio setup and how we might take some photos. Okay, so my goal now is just to show you a little bit of kind of a studio setup and some cool things that you could do, how aperture and shutter speed play a role a little bit. And so we've got a few things set up with some flashes off camera. And so it's really cool once you start to experiment a little bit. I encourage you to do so with some other subject or a horse or a person or whatever that looks like. June is our willing or not so willing candidate this evening. We'll find out. But we've got her set up and we'll take some pictures just to show you. We'll try to kill some of that ambient light, that background light, so you can see some cool effects that are then portrayed. And so it's a little tough if we use these sidewalls as the backdrop only because they're white and they're so bright, okay? And so a lot reflects off. Great for bouncing light, but if you're trying to cut down on light, it can make things a little more difficult. And so we'll just take a few pictures to start out. Right off the bat, we've got this flash hooked up to our Pocket Wizard, our third-party radio controller. And so that's on channel B. I can control that from the camera as well. It is shining through that diffuser umbrella like that massive softbox. Gonna put some light on her in this angle. Over here, we've got the opposite setup for now. Again, we might switch this up, but right now, we've got this radio controller and this flash firing into it in this direction, and then it's gonna hit that silver background that you could see before inside this umbrella, and then return back to her, okay? And we'll try to kill some of that ambient light. And so, right off the bat, let's just take a picture or so and see where we are at, okay? And so, we'll get down here and see, and if we just take one picture right here, we got a pretty good lighting of June with our flash, and we're doing pretty good with killing ambient light like I was hoping to. And so we'll throw those up on the screen so you can see, but it can create some neat effects. We're going to try, it's tough down here, we're going to try to kill our ambient light even more, okay? And so let's just see what happens. Okay. And so we have killed some more ambient light, but we need to get a little bit more flash onto June. Okay. And so we might move this, stay. We might move this umbrella in a little bit. And then from here, we'll see. We could always rotate this just a hair. We've got our setup here. I've moved one in just a little bit. I've turned the power up on this one, tried to kill our ambient light. And so just to show you, hey, June, look over here. Just to show you what that might look like on camera, you can see again, we've got her cool, kind of well exposed, and we've killed all of that background, okay? And so she's lit up with the flash, just showing you what it might be able to do if you get off camera. We can all of a sudden bring that ambient light back, should we choose. And let's just bring it back to kind of the normal spectrum. And so now if we took a picture, June, now all of a sudden we've got things a little bright, so we can kick things down. This is again an adjustment on the top of this camera that then allows me to change essentially the compensation of this flash. And so we'll check our focus point. June, hey, June, look right here. And so now you can see she's pretty well exposed, okay? But we can see what's in the background. It's blown out somewhat, but again, if we take that as compared to no flash, let's just turn all of our flashes off real quick and see what that contrast and example might look like. And so you can see the difference in that picture versus maybe the one with the flash, a little bit more light on her. But we can do a lot with flash photography. And so you could use a different subject, you could try some other things, use a horse, a person, but the biggest thing I can tell you is try to get the flash off the camera. If it is on the camera, bounce it off the ceiling, bounce it off the wall, etc. But flash photography is a fun thing. Play around with it, and again, you can get some cool results. And so with that, everyone, hopefully you learned a little bit more about artificial lighting, flash photography, and we'll talk to you next time.